for 14 seasons on NBC. From September 12, 1959 to January 16, 1973, four men on horseback rode out of the Ponderosa Ranch and into the living rooms of America. Bonanza was the first Western broadcast in color. At its peak, from 1964 to 1967, it was the #1 show on American television, not just among Westerns, but across every genre, every network, every night of the week. 431 episodes, 14 seasons, a run that was second in the entire history of the Western genre, only to Gunsmoke. The Cartwright family, a widowed patriarch and his 3 sons, each born to a different mother, each carrying a different temperament, became one of the most recognized fictional families in the world. And then, one by one, the men who built that family began to leave. Today, of the original cast, every Cartwright is gone. 2 supporting players from the show's later seasons are the only faces still here. The stories of how the family ended are worth knowing in full. Number 1 is Lorne Greene, who played Ben Cartwright, the patriarch, the moral center, the man around whom the entire show organized itself, and who was, in the opinion of almost everyone who worked with him, the most professionally serious and personally generous actor on the call sheet. He was born Lorne Greene on February 12, 1915 in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, the son of Russian Jewish immigrants. He studied at Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario, and built a career first in radio, becoming one of the most recognized voices in Canada during World War II as the chief news announcer for CBC Radio. His delivery was so authoritative and so consistently the bearer of wartime casualty reports that Canadian listeners gave him a nickname, the Voice of Doom. He arrived in Hollywood after the war with that voice intact and a physical presence to match it. Ben Cartwright was, structurally, the most difficult role on the show. He was the anchor, the father, the man who provided the moral framework that all 3 sons pushed against in different ways and always returned to. Greene played that function for 14 years without making it feel like a function. He was on screen, a man who had built something in the wilderness through loss and grief and stubbornness, who loved his sons with a completeness that the show's writers periodically tested, and that the character never failed. Off-screen, Greene was building something similar with the younger cast members. Michael Landon, who was 13 years his junior and had arrived in Hollywood with none of the security that Greene had, later said he had never stopped thinking of Greene as his actual father. He refused at least one television project because he felt audiences would find it disorienting to see the 2 of them in something that did not acknowledge that relationship. What most viewers never knew is that both Greene and Pernell Roberts wore hairpieces throughout the entire run of the show. Dan Blocker began wearing one in 1968 when he started losing his hair. The Ponderosa's patriarch and his eldest son were working from disguises the whole time, a fact nobody found remarkable until it was mentioned in the show's retrospectives decades later. After Bonanza ended in 1973, Greene released country albums, made television appearances, and then, in 1978, joined the science fiction era by playing Commander Adama in the original Battlestar Galactica, a role that introduced him to a generation of viewers who had no particular memory of the Ponderosa. He was working consistently into his early 70s and had signed on to reprise Ben Cartwright for the first Bonanza TV movie in 1988. He died before filming began. Lorne Greene died on September 11, 1987, at St. John's Hospital in Santa Monica, California, of complications from pneumonia following surgery for a perforated ulcer. He was 72. He is buried at Hillside Memorial Park Cemetery in Culver City, California. Michael Landon, his little Joe, is entombed in the same cemetery, within walking distance of Greene's grave, the closest they could come to the Ponderosa in real life. Number 2 is Pernell Roberts, who played Adam Cartwright, the eldest son, the most formally educated, the one who had inherited his father's discipline without quite inheriting his patience, and who made the single most controversial decision in the show's history when he walked away from it after 6 seasons in 1965 at the height of its popularity. He was born on May 18, 1928 in Waycross, Georgia. He served in the United States Marine Corps, studied drama, and built a substantial stage career before Bonanza, including work in Shakespeare productions and a stint with the Arena Stage in Washington, D.C. He was a serious theatrical actor who took a television western and, for 6 years, gave it everything he had. Then he left. His reasons were multiple, and some of them were principled. He believed the show's treatment of Black and Native American characters was racially reductive, and said so publicly at a time when network television actors almost never said such things. He believed the scripts were not doing justice to Adam's intelligence or potential. He believed the show had peaked and was beginning to repeat itself. And he was, by the accounts of those who worked with him, an exceptionally difficult personality, demanding, opinionated, and unwilling to perform a version of professionalism that required him to pretend disagreements did not exist. The producers, for their part, eventually stopped trying to reason with him and simply wrote Adam Cartwright out with a storyline about going to sea. What happened next is the detail that reframes the departure. After leaving Bonanza in 1965, Roberts spent the next 14 years doing exactly what he said he wanted to do: theater, occasional film work, guest television appearances, civil rights activism. And then, in 1979, he returned to television in the role of Trapper John M.D., a spin-off of Mass, and played that character for 7 seasons. The serious theatrical actor who had left the most popular show in America to do what he believed in spent a decade proving he was right, and then circled back to primetime television anyway. He won a Golden Globe nomination for Trapper John. He married 4 times. His 4th wife, Eleanor Criswell, was with him when pancreatic cancer, the same disease that had killed Michael Landon 18 years earlier, took him. Pernell Roberts died on January 24, 2010 at his home in Malibu, California. He was 81, the last of the original Cartwright family to die. His burial location was not publicly documented. Number 3 is Dan Blocker, who played Eric Haas Cartwright, the gentle giant, the middle son, the one who combined his father's physical scale with a temperament so naturally warm that the production crew reportedly found him the least actorish and most likable person on the entire set, and whose death in May 1972 effectively ended the show even before NBC made it official. He was born on December 10, 1928, in DeKalb, Texas, the son of a general store owner. He was a large child who became a larger man, 6 feet 4 inches, 320 pounds when he was cast, but the size was always the least interesting thing about him. He had a master's degree in drama from Sul Ross State University. He had been a school teacher and a football coach before acting. He was, by the accounts of everyone who encountered him, a man whose warmth and intelligence far exceeded what any television character could fully contain. In 1965, while Bonanza was at the peak of its success, Blocker started the first Bonanza steakhouse chain restaurant, a business venture that eventually merged with the Ponderosa franchise and grew into a chain that bore his show's name for decades. He and Landon were close enough during production that they shared recycled jokes across long shooting days to keep each other alert. Blocker's children studied karate under Chuck Norris alongside Landon's children. The families were, in the most practical sense, woven together. On May 13, 1972, Blocker underwent surgery to remove his gallbladder. The surgery appeared to go well. He died the following day of a pulmonary embolism, a blood clot in the lung, at age 43. The death was sudden, without warning, and without the chance for any of his co-stars to prepare. On the first day of shooting the show's 14th and final season, the set was, by Landon's later account, paralyzed by grief-stricken silence. The production made the mistake of trying to continue as if nothing had happened, which made everything worse. The character of Hos was written out with an off-screen drowning, explained only obliquely on-screen, not acknowledged with the ceremony the audience deserved. NBC canceled Bonanza in November 1972. The last episode aired on January 16, 1973. Nobody who has ever written seriously about the show has doubted that Dan Blocker's death was the event from which it never recovered. He is interred at Woodman Cemetery in DeKalb, Texas, back in the town where he was born, in the state that made him. If these stories mean something to you, please subscribe. Every burial location in this script was verified from primary sources. Your subscription is what keeps the lights on for the next one. Number 4 is Michael Landon, who played Little Joe Cartwright for all 14 seasons and all 430 31 episodes. The youngest son, the hottest temper, the one the audience fell in love with fastest, and whose real name was Eugene Maurice Arrivitz, a fact that almost nobody remembers because he became Michael Landon so completely that the original name never quite fit anymore. He was born on October 31st, 1936 in Forest Hills, Queens, New York. His mother Peggy was a comedian and dancer. His father Ellie was Jewish. His parents were frequently at odds, and their household was, by Landon's own accounts, one of instability and shame. His mother suffered from significant mental illness and periodically attempted suicide in front of her children. The specific humiliation that he carried into adulthood, one he spoke about publicly later in life, was bedwetting. His mother hung his wet bed sheets out the window as punishment, and he ran home from school every single day for years, hoping to arrive before his classmates could see them. He kept running. He earned a track and field scholarship to the University of Southern California on the strength of a javelin throw, and then tore a ligament that ended the athletic career before it began. He turned to acting not because he wanted it, but because he needed to become someone else. And then he spent the rest of his life making that someone else the kind of man his childhood had not given him. He was 22 years old when Bonanza cast him as Little Joe. He received more fan mail than any other cast member and used that leverage to negotiate the right to write and direct episodes, skills he developed into a second career that ultimately defined him more than the first. Little House on the Prairie followed Bonanza's cancellation in 1974. Highway to Heaven followed that in 1984. For 30 consecutive years, Landon appeared on NBC in shows that, whatever their surface differences, were organized around the same emotional argument: that decency was possible, that families were worth fighting for, that a man who tried to be good was not wasting his time. He appeared on the cover of TV Guide 22 times. Only Lucille Ball appeared more. He smoked 4 packs of unfiltered cigarettes a day. He drank heavily through much of the Bonanza years. In early April 1991, during a ski vacation in Utah, he began experiencing severe abdominal pain that he had been ignoring for weeks. He flew home. A CT scan revealed a large tumor. The diagnosis was inoperable pancreatic cancer that had already metastasized to his liver and lymph nodes. His response was to invite reporters to his 10-acre Malibu ranch for a press conference before the tabloids could construct the story for him. Then, on May 9, 1991, he appeared on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson and discussed it openly, with humor and without self-pity. He made Carson laugh. He described his coffee enema and carrot juice regimen with complete deadpan. He told the audience he was going to fight it. He asked his fans to pray for him. He meant everything he said. Michael Landon died on July 1, 1991, at his home in Malibu, California. He was 54 years old. His urn is entombed in a private family mausoleum at Hillside Memorial Park Cemetery in Culver City, California. His epitaph reads, "He seized life with joy. He gave to life generously. He leaves a legacy of love and laughter." Lorne Greene, his television father, is buried within walking distance of him in the same cemetery. The boy who ran home from school every day to hide his shame had spent 30 years on American television telling audiences that people were worth believing in. He is in Culver City now, near the man he called his father, in the hills above the city that made him someone he could live with. Number 5 is David Canary, who played Candy Canaday, the ranch foreman who joined the Ponderosa in season 9 and stayed through most of the show's remaining run, and who came to Bonanza having nearly become a professional football player instead. He was drafted by the Denver Broncos in the NFL before deciding that acting was the thing he loved more. That choice led to Bonanza, and after Bonanza to a role that lasted even longer: Adam Chandler on the ABC soap opera All My Children, a character he played across more than 1,200 episodes over multiple decades, winning 5 Daytime Emmy Awards in the process. He remained with All My Children until 2 years before his death. David Canary died on November 16, 2015 in Greenwich, Connecticut, of natural causes at age 77. He is buried in Connecticut, the state where he spent his later years. Number 6 is Tim Matheson, who played Griff King, a paroled ex-convict turned ranch hand who joined the Ponderosa in the show's final season, and who is alive in 2026 at 75 years old. He was a former child actor who had worked in animation voiceover, episodic westerns, and comedy before Bonanza found him. After the show ended, he built one of the most durable careers in the second generation of television actors, National Lampoon's Animal House in 1978, The West Wing for 7 seasons, Heart of Dixie from 2011 to 2015, and the Netflix series Virgin River, where he still appears. He lives in California and continues to work. Number 7 is Mitch Vogel, who played Jamie Hunter Cartwright, the orphan teenage boy Ben adopts in season 11, and who joined the cast at age 12, having already appeared in the Lucille Ball and Henry Fonda film, Yours, Mine, and Ours. He made his final on-screen appearance in 1978, 5 years after Bonanza ended, and stepped away from acting entirely. He lives in Southern California, involved in music and church activities, and makes occasional appearances at Bonanza-related events. He is the quietest exit on the list, a child who played a television orphan, grew up, and chose a life the cameras were not invited into. The Ponderosa is gone. The horses have been sold. The color television that made the show a landmark has been replaced by technologies its creators could not have imagined. And the men who rode out of that ranch every week for 14 years are mostly in the ground now. In Culver City, in DeKalb, in Malibu, in a location in Connecticut that has never been widely reported. Lorne Greene and Michael Landon lie near each other in the same California cemetery, within walking distance, the closest the Ponderosa ever got to having a permanent address. Ben Cartwright and Little Joe, together at the end, in the hills above the city where they made each other's careers possible. 2 of the riders are still here. Tim Matheson at 75, still working, still on screen. Mitch Vogel in Southern California, quietly, on his own terms, having made the rarest choice available to a former child actor, walking away while the work was still good. If these stories meant something to you, leave a comment below. Tell me which Cartwright hit hardest. I read every reply.